So I left school and I went to university to go and study. And the university that I went to was about 4 hours drive away from where my home was. And I was in my second year of study. And I decided with a few friends that we would actually go home for the weekend and surprise our parents. And so we went home and we had the most wonderful weekend, and it was really fun. And then my mother took me to my friend's place to catch up in the car so we could drive back to university. And she behaved a little bit strangely as she was saying goodbye, and she didn't want me to sit in the front seat. And so I ended up sitting in the back seat. She sort of gave me some extra hugs that afternoon, which was a little bit unusual. Anyway, we set off on our way. Well, 2.5 hours into our trip, we were involved in a head-on car accident. And this was a night that it was pouring with rain. It was dark. It was absolutely miserable evening of weather. And we came down the bottom of a hill and there was flooding, and the car aquaplaned and went over to the other side of the road and hit another car coming down the hill. So all I remember was hearing my other flatmates in the car screaming because I was asleep. I was in the back seat and I got up to have a look to see what was happening, and I can't remember anything else. So that was the incident. In post that actual moment, I have a couple of very vivid moments that are still very, very imprinted on my mind. And one of them was, I remember opening up my eyes and seeing this woman who was stroking me and just saying, "It's going to be okay, it's going to be okay." And I felt quite frightened at that point. And then my next memory is I was out of my body. And by that stage, the ambulance, fire, and everybody else had arrived. And I was watching it like a movie, but I was elevated watching everything that was going on, absolutely fascinated, going, "Oh, wow, okay, that's interesting, and what's happened to them," and going and having a look at one of my flatmates who was leaning against the car, who was the driver, and, looking at him going, "Oh, he doesn't look very happy." And then I saw my own body that was inside the ambulance on one of the beds inside. And the ambulance people closed up the back and said, "We need to get going." And I literally sat up out of my body in the back of the ambulance, just surveying the inside of the ambulance, looking at me on the left, and one of my other flatmates that were in the car was on the right. All I could see of my body, because it was covered in blankets and I had my head all wrapped up and there were towels around my head. But I do remember a very light glow around my body. I felt lighter. I felt like I wasn't a whole body. It's hard to even describe. Like, I didn't see myself as this physical body sort of floating up at the top of the ambulance. I felt like it was my vision, but it wasn't me. It wasn't all of me. And today I can tell you what the nurse looked like. I can tell you the conversation of one male driver and the other person in the front. My flatmate was screaming in pain because we didn't realise till later as he'd broken his back and he had also broken his leg. So the ambulance drivers were talking about driving in the middle of the road to try and keep the journey as still as possible. And yet the emergency staff in the back were saying, "This was a really bad idea. We've put her in the car and she's losing a lot of blood and unconscious and not with us. And we've got this other guy that we need to drive slowly with." So it was this whole angst and conversation in the ambulance. And I remember looking down at myself going, "Oh, that's interesting," and looking very peaceful. There was no anxiety, there was no worry. It was just feeling really comfortable to the whole scene and observing what was actually going on. And the fascinating thing I remember when I went back into my body was the nurse in the back of the ambulance asked my flatmate and said, "What is her name? We need to get hold of her parents." And he told them what my name was. And at that time, my surname was Lee, which was L-E-A. My flatmate spelt it L-E-E. And I still remember the feeling of panic going, they'll never be able to find my parents. And I just felt myself go woof back into my body. I woke up and I said to the nurse, "It's L-E-A, L-E-A."
Wow.
And they live in Takapuna. And the look on her face when that happened, she was just absolutely astonished. And I find that other interesting thread was when I talked to my mother, she said she just really deeply knew, had an uneasy feeling, but she didn't know what it was. And so when they got the phone call at 1 o'clock in the morning, she said it all made sense to her, that she went, "That's why. Was unsure where you should sit in the car and I wanted to give you an extra hug." And, mother's intuition that she kind of felt something hours before it actually happened. And then I left my body again and continued to watch the whole journey from the top of the ambulance. Over a period of time, we finally got to the hospital, which was, by the way, we were out in the middle of nowhere. It was a long way from a hospital. So within that journey, I had lost a lot of blood. I had a massive head injury. I was de-scalped, and they were really concerned because I literally sliced my head and de-scalped all the way to the back. So in the emergency room, again, I was out of my body and watched what they were doing. And I remember the two surgeons that were there, the emergency department people, were talking about, what do we do here? Because I had some veins, arteries that were cut in my head that just wouldn't stop bleeding. And so they were trying to have a discussion. And this is a provincial hospital. It's not a main centre hospital. And at some point, I had this feeling within myself going, actually, I need to be back in there. I need to be put together again. And I remember that last feeling of going back into my body and settling in and feeling really comfortable and saying, this is going to be okay. So this was the really fascinating thing. So I ended up coming back home, and in amongst a range of other injuries, I had lost my short and my medium-term memory from my head injury. And back in those days, and even though I'm not a dinosaur, I was 19, so it is a while ago. And the way that they treated head injuries back then is completely different to the way it is now. And the best I used to get was going to the doctors once a week, and he literally would have a packet of cards, playing cards, and he'd hold a card up and say to me, put it down and say, "Can you remember what this is?" And if I could, it was a great day. And then he'd say, "Get some more sleep, come back, we'll see you next week and see how you're doing." And I kid you not, that was the rehabilitation that I had. I couldn't even remember where I left my shoes when I'd just taken them off, and they were literally sitting down there. I didn't know where they were. So I ended up living back at home with my parents. I had to leave university because I couldn't even remember anything that I'd studied. And my life looked pretty grim to me. It was like my career had gone out the window. I was having the time of my life, and suddenly it came to a grinding halt. I remember after a few months of this just thinking, actually, you know what? I need to take this into my own hands because I'm not going anywhere, and I don't want to be a victim of this, and this is not how I want my life story to be. And so I decided to actually take my own rehabilitation into my own hands. And over a 2-year period, I rehabilitated myself, and I have an amazing memory now. And the incredible thing over that 2 years was I just learnt so much about humans, about how important our attitude and our mindset are in life. I really learned how powerful we can be as humans when we put our mind to something. I learned that your mind is definitely your partner in success, and that we have many more choices in life than we realize. And I'm ever so grateful for those lessons. I learned so much about the brain, about a memory, about how people interacted. But I also felt a great comfort because of my NDE and out-of-body experience that I was supported, and there was this other support that was with me. So essentially, what I learned in that time of my own rehabilitation is what I put into practice in my own business now. And a lot of those things I actually teach people, because the interesting thing is that was just one event in my life. And I've had some other terrible tragedies, my best friend taking her own life, and I was the last one to speak to her, and various other things. Lost both my parents within 6 weeks of each other unexpectedly. So many things have happened in my life, and I still go back to what I learned from that car accident, and the lessons that I learned and what I learned about myself, about humans, that I put into my current life now, and also now into my business. Sometimes I firmly believe, like, I am so grateful for that event in my life, just like I am for all the other events that I've had, because it's made me who I am today, and it's given me the most amazing confidence in life and such a deeper understanding. So, the way that it happened, it was meant to happen because I got an amazing learning and experience out of it. I very much believe in, sharing what I've learnt in my journey along the way. I work with thousands of people a year. And, what I really see is that there's a lot of people who live in fear of all sorts of things in life. And to me, I really want to try and help change that. I've had a different, deeper level of sort of experience of life, but, life is here for living and enjoying and getting experiences and growing ourselves. That's what I believe. So I want to be able to teach people that, ride through, don't live a life of fear, actually take those lessons on board to grow.
Hey fellow NDE fans, we have some exciting things coming up on the other side, but we could really use your help and support to keep going with this channel. Our outreach team works around the clock, making sure to bring you the best NDE stories that we can find. But now we're looking to expand into other countries to get near-death experiences from around the globe. However, we need your help and support to make this happen. This is why we're introducing our YouTube membership program. For less money than a cup of coffee, you can get access to exclusive ad-free episodes that haven't been on YouTube. Watch and participate in live Q&As with the guests. Engage directly with us and NDEers. Participate in giveaways and live events. And most importantly, you will ensure our channel's continuous efforts to seek out and uncover these important experiences worldwide. Support us by hitting the Join Now button below. Thank you for your continued viewership and support. Your help will make a difference, and we look forward to building our community together with you.